What is going on, RotoGrinders? Dean here. It's Dean 7904 if you want to get all technical. I mean, it's 5:30 in the East Coast, 2:30 in the West Coast, 4:30 Tennessee time. Of course, that means it's time for the flagship show here at RotoGrinders. It is called Grinderslive. Joining me today, it's a very intimate Grinderslive, just the two of us, myself and Blender. What's going on, Blender? How are things in your world?
Just the two of us. Isn't there a song like that?
We get copyright hit. It's a whole thing. We get kicked off.
Even with my singing voice.
Yeah, Will Smith's gonna come at us, or I think somebody sing it before he did.
Will Smith is on the injured list. He can't come after us.
Yeah, totally different guys. Cross him off your list. Yeah, are we sweating some basketball? Do you play the NBA?
No, I'm not dealing with this crap. Well, now at least it's not who starts the second half, the guys that you never heard of. So maybe I should be playing more, but no, I've been focused on baseball, not basketball.
Yeah, well, it's been I've watched what I can watch so far today. I did a sports card show earlier today. I'm not sure if have you dabbled in the sports card market, because I know a lot of the DFS guys have gotten into it.
When I was 11, sure.
Oh, is that shots fired? Are you mocking them? Is that what you're saying?
No. I was a sports card collector. I wasn't one of the kids that put the cards in the bike spokes or anything. No, I anything on if Donruss rated rookie existed, I wanted them from my friends. It didn't matter if they didn't know. My biggest little scam was I think when I was 9 years old. Yeah, 9 years old. I think I accumulated about 60 or 70 Roberto Alomar 88 Donruss cards.
Oh, sure. What's the scam?
No one knew who he was, but I mean, I just saw in the Beckett that the price was high and just give him. I'll trade all my Yankees and Mets because I was from New York. So you want my Jack Clark card? Sure, take it. Have fun.
Roberto Alomar, yeah, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I want to say his brother Sandy was a pretty good catcher too, for what it's worth. But hey, this is Daily Fantasy Sports Blender. All we care about is today. We don't care about tomorrow or like 20 years ago. We care about today and today only. We have we had 11 games. Of course, we lost one. Unfortunately, the Cincinnati game was scratched. Weather's fine, so we're thinking that's COVID related. Hopefully, that turns out positively, and it's not as bad as it looks on the surface. But yeah, we're down to 10 games. We also had a pitcher scratch as well too. Oswald, Roy Oswald, maybe a card you collected 20 years ago. I believe is his nephew. Corey Oswald's going to go ahead and draw the start there for the Mets today. I was going to give a sharp side winner to the people. I feel like we gave winners yesterday in the sharp side app, but I don't recall. I will say we crushed the show. We talked about Boyd playing for upside or playing against him for upside, and he had like every batter he didn't strike out, he gave up a homer. I'm not sure what side of that you were on, but that was wild.
I was on the Boyd side, so in the beginning it didn't look that good.
But I think he struck out the most guys.
He ended up getting as many points as Ryu, so I was fine with that. I got my pictures right yesterday. I just didn't have the Mets. I had plenty of Padres. Tatis single-handedly saved my day.
You know, they got to bench him for swinging on a 3-0 count. I mean, how dare him try to hit
the written rules of DFS is that you swing at that. We're the opposite. When it's a 3-0 count, it's like we don't want 2 points for a walk. I want you swinging at that fastball down the middle.
You get the ribby, but yeah, I hear you. Yeah, walks are the worst. Like I don't get excited about.
They're not the worst. They get you 2 points, but I mean, if you need more for a 5K hitter, but like people complaining in the Discord, like a walk and an RBI is 4 points, and it's like I can't believe Bellinger didn't swing at that. It's like, shouldn't you be happy he got anything?
Yeah, well, you want the homer, right? Life is about expectations, Blender. When you start expecting grand slams every single time, you're going to be disappointed.
Have you taken a look at me? Does it look like I should have high expectations?
That should be the subject of today's show is temper your expectations. And temper your expectations when I give a sharp side winner today. How about that for the segue? In order to get the streak, you have to be under you can't just pick the easiest bets on the board. Like the Cubs are minus 200, I believe. Darvish, we'll talk about him in a second. He's the nut pitcher. We'll talk about if you're going to be locking him in, fading him, playing with the projection as far as the field. Myself personally, spoiler alert, I'm going to be on, I think, Darvish in every single lineup. I like the Cubbies today versus Cardinals team that has played, I want to say, double headers in 2 of their last 3 days. They're coming off COVID. It's a terrible ballpark that they're hitting. Darvish, the clear best pitcher on the slate. We don't have a starting lineup yet for the Cardinals, for what it's worth. Maybe they got to hit the refresh button. But what I can tell, no starting lineup just yet. But they are minus 200, but you can bet them on the Sharp Side app. Minus 140 or less. If you get a minus 1.5, so take a minus 1.5 and it's plus 105. I'm good with that. I think the Cubs win today, something like 5-1 or 4-1 or something like that. So the under too. We like the under, and we think the Cubs as far as the run line. And you didn't have a winner for the people. That's what you're telling me pre-show. No winners?
Winners? I want my lineup to win in GPPs.
Well,
that's what I would swipe on. I'm swiping on my lineups.
Well, how does that help somebody else that watching the show?
I don't want to help anyone else. What?
You're so selfish. You're not here for that.
You went pretty big a couple of days ago, right? You had a 5-figure first place.
Yeah, I mean, basketball, it's been a good, the bubble treated me well so far, yeah.
Right, so what did you do for the people when you won? Nothing.
I had a free roll amongst my friends.
That sounds suspect.
Did I look up and to the left? Is that how you know somebody's lying?
No, not that you did that. Not that you didn't have a free roll. It's that you have any friends.
That's fair too. All that entire sentence was a lie. I made it all up. Not one truth in the entire sentence. According to chat, Lewis Brinson is scratched. So change everything. I know he's your favorite player.
Thank God. Oh, what am I getting? That's the best news for me.
I'm not sure who they're going to replace him with, but spoiler alert.
Joyce is now going to bat second.
Oh, okay. Well,
or was he batting second?
I don't think he was in the lineup. So yeah, I'm refreshing right now. Aguiar was batting second, so we might see Joyce jump in there. We'll see how that goes down. Hit up the RotoGrinders. You get free lineups. Free lineups. The lineups page. I use it at RG. It's free. Lots of stuff. Of course, it's premium. But if you guys aren't using the lineups page here at RotoGrinders.com, I'm not sure what you're doing. All right, set the table. As far as this slate, it's gone from 11 gamer to a 10 gamer. And in my opinion, Darvish is the clear top pitcher. We lost Luis Castillo. We'll talk about Carrasco, who like Cheese was talking about in his article today. And, a nice matchup against Pittsburgh, good ballpark, terrible opponent. But like his velocity has been down. He's been walking too many dudes. They're asking, they're asking them the main price, 9.9K on DK. So it's not like a discount of any sort. Even like 85% of Carrasco should be able to take care of these Pirates as like my SP2. I'm considering double barrel, but kick me off as far as Darvish. I know we talked pre-show briefly. You said your pitcher pool is really small. I'm going to assume Darvish is one of them that's in the conversation for you.
That would be correct. Right now I have the Bat X projections loaded into Lineup HQ. I use Cardi's projections. I use everything. I use everything on RotoGrinders, but the projection set is Cardi's. And looks like from this slate, like I'm not doing MME today because whenever I'm on shows, I don't have enough time to do that. So I'm going to be hand building about 10 to 15 lineups, some mid-stakes GPPs. But really, like I'm looking more at a diverse set of stacks and keeping with the same pitchers. Like to me, my pitching pool, truthfully, my pitching pool, I'd rather play 3 pitchers: Darvish, Carrasco, and Dylan Cease against the Tigers. But I may need a cheaper pitcher than an $8,500 pitcher because Darvish is 10.5 on DraftKings, Carrasco's 9.9. So like even with Cease, Carrasco, I can't play any expensive bats really. I need to find like cheap fillers for stacks. So to go, I need to find someone in the 7K range. And like to me, Blake Snell, 9,500. Obviously, he's not a cheap pitcher.
How many baseballs is Blake is he going to throw tonight?
Right. Well, that's the whole thing. Is that if Blake Snell was 5% owned, 8% owned, single digit owned, I'd take a shot on him against the Yankees. But he's not. He's going to be closer to 15 to 20% owned. So I think that's about efficient. So what's his upside? He has to be efficient with his pitches. He has to outscore Darvish or Carrasco, or if they both fail, or even like Maeda, who I think is overpriced at 9,700. Like I think I'd rather play Snell over Maeda, but still in comparison, I'd rather play Darvish or Carrasco, or even Cease point per dollar at 8,500 over all of them. That like if Snell beats me on 90 pitches, then he beats me on 90 pitches. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to make enough of a difference. In 90 pitches, he gets 10. Let's say he gets 10 strikeouts. Like I could get a 25 plus point score from Darvish or Cease or Carrasco. So like I'm not that compelled to play Snell. And then everyone else in the player pool kind of sucks. I mean, the only reason I'm considering Daniel Ponce de Leon is because the wind's blowing in Wrigley, and I need a cheap pitcher.
Yeah, and we talked about pre-show against lefties. I think he strikes out 35% of lefties the last 2 seasons as well, and there's like 4 or 5 lefties in that lineup for Chicago. Let's break it down individually. You mentioned Snell. First start of the season, 2 innings, 46 pitches. Then 3 innings, 53 pitches. Then 3 innings, 59 pitches. 5 innings, 70 pitches. And he was cruising there. He was pitching really, really well there. What's a realistic expectation? I think about 6 innings, 85 pitches sounds about right to me. Yes?
Yeah, but that limits his upside. So you're paying $9,500 for
yeah.
It's nearly impossible for him to get over 30 points. I don't even think you need it. So
you don't need 30.
The only reason I could see to play Snell in GPP is if you're betting on Darvish and Carrasco to fail. Like when Blake Snell gets 22 points, but Darvish is sitting there with 6 and Carrasco sitting there with 10, and you're making up the difference. I think that's the only reason. But if Darvish and Carrasco pitch 6 innings, I think they have a better shot at outscoring Snell in 85 pitches.
Are you doing a screen share? I think you're screen sharing for the people. Do me a favor. Pull up Plate IQ and pull up Snell versus this Yankees lineup, because one of the reasons to consider it, obviously you need him to throw 85 pitches fairly efficiently, but the strikeout potential, the strikeout upside versus Yankees lineup, no Stanton, no Judge, no LeMahieu. If those guys are strikeout guys, LeMahieu more of a contact guy, but they replaced him with a bunch of guys that strike out too. Collectively, they strike out at 26.5% versus the average lefty. This is not the average lefty. This is Blake Snell, who strikes out 33.8% of his opponents. Voit leading off at 27.7%. The most contact-heavy guy is Urshela at 19% as far as striking out. Gary Sanchez, when he's not banging out his 400-foot homers, 35% of the time he's striking out. Frazier at 31%, Estrada at 31%, Andujar at 25%, all up and down that lineup. There is a path. He's got to thread that needle where he goes 6 and strikes out 9 or 10. And you mentioned he's got to beat Darvish. Why not play? You can play them both. You can play 2 guys on DK. I know it hurts your bats to some extent, but that's something I'm going to consider. And this Yankee lineup makes it even more encouraging. I'd like to get a count if we can get it, from the beats, going to tell us what we're expecting. But I'm thinking in my head about 6 innings, 85 pitches, which seems pretty realistic. Yes? No? Did I sell you as a tournament play? Well, I sold that so hard that apparently he froze on us. So there you go. Oh, it's a good time to say hello to chat. What's up, YouTube? Feel free to like and subscribe. Leave some comments in there. I don't know how long we're going to have just me by myself rambling, but I'd love to interact with the people until Blender comes back. Hey, let's talk about you, Darvish. Unfortunately, I'm not screen sharing this, but I promise you all the stuff's available here at RotoGrinders.com. Let's talk about you, Darvish. Do we like you, Darvish, today? Yes, we do. Why do we like him? Well, he's facing a St. Louis team that's played doubleheaders in 2 of the last 3 days. Awesome ballpark. If you take a look at the Weather Edge, again, another tool you get here as far as premium. I believe you can buy it a la carte, but there's no reason to do that. Well, I guess you can. Sure, why not if you don't want to get everything else? In 131 games similar as far as the weather conditions at Wrigley, home runs have seen a decrease at 17%. Runs overall have seen a decrease at 3.8%. And ERA at 5.5% as well. Yu Darvish, just the clear best pitcher on the slate in a really, really positive environment versus a really tired St. Louis team because, hey, they played doubleheaders in 2 of the last 3 days. They're trying to catch up because of their COVID schedule. Also, he's got a 31.2% K percent. Great walk rate as well, too, especially in the back half of last season, 7.3%. There are some Ks in this lineup, at least the projected lineup. Tyler O'Neill, hopefully he cracks it at 31% collectively. And Bader, we want Bader in there as well at 29.7%. Again, don't know the lineup just yet, but we're seeing a 24.4% collective K percentage. We saw him throw a no-hitter through 6 last game, I believe, 5 or 6. He was really, really strong. He's in good form if that's something that does it for you. Devin, am I still alone?
I'm back.
You could interrupt me at any time. I feel like I'm just rambling. But I sold you, Darvish. You need to, double down on it, or you just got to just assume you agree with you, Darvish. You like him.
I agree with you, Darvish. He tried to cut out my internet connection because he didn't want anyone to roster him.
Yeah, I just I understand tournaments. I understand getting leverage. I understand ownership. I get all that, and I think our projections have him at least 4 points over the field, which is a pretty big number for projections as far as the second best pitcher. That's DK. I'm sure it's even bigger on FanDuel, obviously, where their scoring goes. What are you doing with Darvish? I'm almost certain that I'm playing him in every single lineup.
I'm playing 15 lineups today. He's going to be in at least 10 of them.
Okay. And
so, I mean, like I said before, my pitching pool is maybe 4 pitchers. Darvish, Cease, Carrasco, and Ponce de Leon as Like, it's either him or Nate Pearson, but I mean, I'm going to be playing Darvish Carrasco lineups even. I mean, like, there are some cheap stacks that you could fit in and still pay nearly over 20K for your pitchers.
So talk to me about Carrasco. Again, Cheese wrote up today. He didn't say he's running away necessarily, and I think he also wrote this on the assumption that Castillo was going to be the guy. He said, like, today's the day where you can be picky. And like, when Castillo was in the conversation, he was my number 2. I was just going to go double barrel, give me Darvish, give me Luis Castillo. Of course, Castillo, that game was scratched. He's not going to be playing. You got to roster 2 guys on DK. Tell me it's okay to play Carrasco. It's safe.
Well, no, it's Carlos Carrasco. He's not safe.
Oh,
but I mean, his problem is with walks. But I mean, he's going to have no problem striking out guys. The Pirates strike out at a 24% rate this year. They're playing in Pittsburgh, which should limit any type of power upside, especially to righties. So, I mean, Carrasco could go out and strike out 8 or 9. He may walk 3 or 4 in the process. But, I mean, I'd rather play Darvish over Carrasco. But the problem is on DraftKings, you have to play a second pitcher. Yeah. You have to make lineups with 2 pitchers.
They won't accept their lineup if you just put one in there.
Right. No, it's not going to work. FanDuel, you're fine. FanDuel, the pitching slate is easy. You play Darvish, and if you want to get leverage, you play Carrasco or maybe Snell or something like that, one pitcher. But you still need to find stacks, and I'm just looking, going, I could build cheap stacks and play Darvish and Carrasco, because who am I playing as my SB2? Do I want to play Corbin Burns? No. Do I want to play Zach Eflin? No. Do I want to play these computer-generated pitchers? Jonathan Brubaker and Tariq Skubal? Skubel's going to pitch 50 pitches. How do I play him? Corey Oswalt's 8,600? Get out of here. Josh Tomlin, Marco Gonzalez against the Dodgers. I mean, there's just Wade LeBlanc, right? 5,900 against the Blue Jays in Baltimore. Like that, Humberto Mejia against the Mets. He projects well in the bat, but Cardi has him at like 82 pitches. And I think that's very aggressive. I think Humberto Mejia could come out and pitch 60 pitches.
I'm looking at the umpire data here on the on the lineup HQ, and a couple extremes, just kind of worth noting. Oswald and Mejia are an extreme hitters umpire, and we have an extreme pitchers umpire in LA for the Dodgers. Somebody's asking about Marco Gonzalez. I can't imagine playing Marco Gonzalez. He's a veteran and he's kind of savvy and he can sort of weasel his way to 6 or 7, and he's a guy that has more rope. He can go throw 100 pitches if things are going fairly well, but I don't project things to go fairly well necessarily. And the other side, Gronsolin is just, they're asking too much. 8.7K, I can't get there. I can't do it. Your thoughts on either of those pitches? Again, I'm throwing Gonzalez into the conversation because it was asked about in chat.
Yeah, well, Gonzalez may only pitch 90 pitches. He's 8,700. I mean, we're at the point where if you're going to pay that much, at least be able to give me 90, 100 more. I mean, Darvish could go over 100. Carrasco go over 100. Cease could go over 100. I mean, I'm just looking, just like, if I'm going to pay that price, they need to be able to pitch 6 innings clear. And Maeda can. Okay, so at least I'd rather play him. But anyone else here, I mean, Marco Gonzalez is going to get killed against the Dodgers. Vault at 8,300 seems like a joke. Burns may not pitch more than 4 innings.
He is
probably get killed. I mean, Tanaka. I'd rather play the Rays bats against him than play Tanaka. Agree. So it's not a matter that it's never fun playing Dylan Cease. I know it's not fun playing Dylan Cease, but it's against the Tigers and they have the highest strikeout rate in the majors. So I feel more comfortable playing him at 8,500 than any of these other. It's a war of attrition. Just like by the time I X out all the people I don't want to play, I only have like 3 or 4 guys left.
Yeah, it's not a matter of like who you want to play, it's who you don't want to play, and like who's left standing is essentially where you're at. And of course, you mentioned basically the guys that I'm at as well too. Carrasco against his Pittsburgh team, not very good. It's a bad lineup. The only power threat is Bell. Polanco, I suppose, a little bit, Reynolds to some degree, but if you look at the plate IQ, there's a lot of red, especially when it comes to ISO and WOBA. Bell's like 2.5K in FanDuel. I think he's kind of sort of somewhat interesting over there. As a one-off. I'm not, locking in Pittsburgh, but again, we talk about the precautions as far as Carrasco's, fastball velocity down just a dip or so. There is some contact hitters in here. Frazier and Newman at 12% and 12.5% as far as striking out versus righties. 29% K rate for Carrasco. 20.4% collectively. Not a massive number, but a perfectly fine number. Polanco's in there. He can strike out plenty. Gonzalez, Reynolds, Moran as well. So I think there are some Ks to be had. Talk to me about Cease against Detroit. You mentioned the potential K upside, and he's been good and, serviceable in 3 of his 4 starts. I know the price is not what you want it to be necessarily, but you also kind of sort of have the salary. You can sort of make it work, I think. There's no core slate. There's no, a bunch of – there's some teams you want to stack with some expensive players, but how much are you prioritizing Dylan Cease? Is he legit? Is he real?
It's Dylan Cease. We never know if he's going to be real. It's more of the matchup. If Cease was playing against a different team, I'd be less inclined on this slate. But against the Tigers, like the Tigers are the type of team that either I play pitchers against or I stack, right? Because they're so cheap. But looking at this lineup, I mean, they're going to be playing what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 righties and 4 lefties. And the righties didn't look at, other than Miguel Cabrera, like everyone strikes out like so hot. I mean, Jacoby Jones is a walking strikeout. Goodrum Scope strikes out a lot. Castro, you're not worried about. Candelario, Kristen Stewart has some power, sure. But I mean, you could play him as a one-off, I guess. But Romine, I'm not scared of. Paredes, this is like his 3rd game in the majors. Like, I just look at this lineup and go, like, I'm not playing Cease. I'm just playing the pitcher against the Tigers.
Yeah, and Cease has really dramatic splits as far as his Ks the last 2 seasons. Versus lefties, 18.4%, not ideal. But versus righties, 28.7%. And you were talking about the righties in the lineup. Looks like we're going to have 6 righties. Is that correct? Is my math correct?
No, 5.
Oh, yeah, I counted Goodrum for some reason. I would assume
right. Miguel, Cabrera, Scope, Jones, Romine, Paredes.
Okay, my math. I'm making that S into an R for some reason in my old age. My eyes are lying to me. Goodrum's going to hit from the left side, but he strikes out 33.5%, and he leads off as well, too. So there are some Ks there to be had. So I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but I think Cease is perfectly fine as your SP2. Is there anybody else that's kind of worth talking about? Like Oswald, I can't imagine.
How do you pay that price for? What are you?
Is he even stretched out? I don't even know if he's stretched out.
This is why we're going to talk about stacks. Marlins stack, baby. I'm known for them. And once Peterson got ruled out, I'm like, is this going to be a Mets bullpen game? And I think people don't realize that Miami is a much better of a hitter's park than it used to be. And looking at this lineup, I mean, the Marlins aren't cheap. But
do we know if the back panels are open? Because last night the roof was closed, but the back panels were open. I don't know if you know the back panels in the left field. You know what I'm talking about? And that
does it make that much of a difference?
I think that changes things. I remember them talking about that when taking batting practice when the ballpark opened. I just remember, I'm from South Florida. I kind of keep an eye on those kind of things, but I don't know. I don't have the statistics on it, but I remember the players were saying like, "Wow, the ball is jumping more with the back panels open." And I don't know if it's open or not tonight. That's a whole other.
The ball will be jumping more because Corey Oswalt and the Mets bullpen is pitching. Who cares?
So Oswalt hasn't pitched since 7/26 in the majors, but he was a part of the alternative trading site, which I have no idea how. He must have been doing simulated games. I don't know. I can't speak to that. Hit up a beat writer. Go on Twitter. I don't really know. Maybe we can get that information somewhere, but I'm working under the assumption that he's probably not going to go very deep. Maybe 4 or 5 innings. And no matter what, like we're not rostering at 8.6K. Cannot justify that. Tanaka is another guy. Can't really trust his pitch count either. Of course, he had that, was it a concussion? They took a line drive off the dome, first game or so in spring training. It was awful. Or whatever. Not spring training. They were playing amongst themselves. But 66 pitches his last time out. And maybe he gets to 80 or so, but he's really going to thread that needle. What about Maeda? Let's talk about Maeda because not sexy. But, he'll just sort of kind of get the job done, be perfectly fine, not going to break the slate, probably not going to implode your lineup. But maybe that's all you need out of your SP2.
Well, SP2, he's 9,700. It's going to be
Double
hard.
Barrel, man.
I guess you can if you're building cheap stacks. But I'd rather spend the 200 and get the more K upside with Carrasco. I think Maeda is fine. I think I would think. I mean, Carrasco against the Pirates, to me, as long as he doesn't walk anyone, he's safe. Maeda doesn't walk many people, but I mean, it's just a matter of do these left-handed bats get any power against him, right? Yelich, Smoke, Narvaez, who kind of sucks, Gambles, a strikeout machine. Sogard, you don't have to worry about. So I think, Maeda.
Well, Sogard's annoying because he takes like those 12-pitch walks, and it just destroys your pitch count.
Yeah,
At least he's batting ninth.
I don't care.
Yeah, I feel better about that.
Right, but I mean, based on the bat, I mean, Maeda doesn't even project all that well. I mean, but I mean, he'll get 15 points and you're fine. I mean, like that. I mean, that's how I view Maeda, as a non-sexy choice. Like, if you didn't want to take a risk on Snell and you're like, I'm going to play Maeda instead, like, okay. But I mean, there's more upside even in 90 pitches with Blake Snell than Kenta Maeda going 100.
But maybe that's all you need. And it's got, like you said, it's like a bet other guys blowing up necessarily. Or if you just roster, two of the big spends and save some salary, there's obviously some punts there that are out there that cracked the lineup today. Maybe 15 points is perfectly fine. That's enough. Big dramatic split as far as his strikeouts for what it's worth. Versus lefties, Maeda strikes out 20.3%. Not terrible, but not ideal. But 34.2% righties. I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4 righties in this lineup. Yeah. So, okay, they're definitely – and there's some Ks not lineup too, 23.9%. We let Milwaukee lineup. It's not your friend of last year's Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers are pretty terrible these days. Summarize pitching before we move on to the sticks.
I'll say what I said again. It's a very condensed pool. I mean, Darvish is going to be by far the most owned. I think next is going to be Carrasco. I know we have Carrasco at 11%, but I think he'll end up with, especially with Castillo gone, we'll have him and Snell and Cease somewhere around 20-ish, and then a smattering everywhere else. So my attitude is that the only reason you don't roster those top pitchers is because you expect them to fail, getting 6 points, getting blown up, and then a pitcher that gives you 14 or 15 is good enough on the slate. But outside of that, I'm going to be playing more diverse stacks than I am pitchers today.
Who's the cheapest pitcher you're rostering today?
Ponce de Leon, 7,000.
Yeah, and that's kind of he's squeamish enough for me. That's as low as I would go to.
He's a fly ball pitcher, and the wind's blowing in at Wrigley, and the Cubs do strike out more over league average. So why not? I mean, it's not like he'll be in a lot of my lineups, but in some of my lineups that I need an expensive hitter, I need to go down from Cease to Ponce de Leon.
All right, let's talk catchers in the chat. Yeah, they're talking about liking and subscribe. Not like and subscribe. It does a lot for the analytics. It really takes no effort. It takes about a half a second. Just got to reach and click. There you go. We'd appreciate that. All right, catchers today. DK, they got it better. It's still not correct. I was saying, did Travis d'Arnaud kick DraftKings dog or something? What is the story here? Why is he only 3K on DK? That's an incorrect price.
Probably their algorithm couldn't handle the lowercase d and the apostrophe. I don't know what happened. I mean, he's your cash game catcher, and that's yeah, he's easy. You just plug him in.
What do you do with him in tournaments? Because in tournaments, he's almost definitely, the math says, not going to be the highest scoring catcher. That's probably not going to happen. I don't know who it's going to be. It's probably somebody else. Maybe it's Cervelli, maybe it's Suzuki, maybe it's Gomes. I don't know. How do you handle that in tournaments?
I don't mind d'Arnaud as a one-off as long as you're playing a contrarian stack. I mean, a lot of times I'm playing the catcher in my stack, but I mean, when d'Arnaud is at least $1,000 underpriced, like he probably should be 4,200 instead of 3,000. So, like, yeah, obviously in a Brave stack, he's going to be a cornerstone. But like, if I'm playing a Marlins stack at 3% owned, and I want to play d'Arnaud in the catcher spot, I have no problem with that. But I mean, I wouldn't play multiple cheap chalk players in the same lineup, even in GPP, because we'll get to some other underpriced, like, cash game type plays. So like d'Arnaud is someone where once I have him in, I can't play any of the other like 3K chalk.
Adam Eaton, is that you're talking about? Adam
Eaton and Verdugo and Tsutsuga, Yoshi, like those guys, I probably wouldn't play together.
Do you have any other thoughts as far as catchers?
Everyone else would be contrarian. I mean, the catcher's the easiest position to get contrarian. We have Travis d'Arnaud projected at 24% ownership. I think the hamster wheels have not.
I'll take the over on that.
I'm going to take the over on that also. But I mean, I don't mind Danny Jansen, 3,900 batting fifth against LeBlanc. I mean, obviously Real Muto. I mean, but these are expensive catchers. Real Muto against Godley batting cleanup at Fenway. I get it, but you're paying up for him. But I mean, to me, the catcher position is d'Arnaud, and if you're not playing him, you're going to be different no matter what you do.
Yeah, Philadelphia is my favorite team today, which is probably not surprising. It's kind of chalky. I guess the Dodgers kind of chalky as well too. But on the road, locked in for 9, positive ballpark bump. Well, I guess it's a different kind of ballpark, but it's a good ballpark nonetheless. Depends upon. It's actually probably negative. It's negative for lefties, lefty power. But the monster in right field is much better for righties. Oh, I cannot believe somebody's calling me on Skype right now. I apologize. I'm going to hang up on them. You're a big jerk. Unbelievable. My bike is having all sorts of shenanigans over here too.
Are those your friends waiting for their free roll money?
Yeah, that's it. The free roll's off. No more free roll. This is why we can't have nice things. Unbelievable. I literally just told this person, I have a show right now. I'll talk to you about, the worst. If you're listening, you're the worst. So first base. I love Romoto, by the way, for what it's worth, and you like him as well. And I'm considering playing him on my main lineup on FanDuel. I'm not really sure, but something I don't normally do, but I just like him that much today. Is today the day? Is today Rhys Hoskins' day? It's happening, right?
Well, I'm going to be fading him. He's going to be chalky. I think first base ownership is going to be spread out fairly. Obviously, Hoskins in Fenway against Godley is good. But, I mean, there are plenty of first basemen to play and that you don't have to pay $4,900 for. I think G-Man Choi against Tanaka at $3,300 is fine. I think if you want to get the Vogel back at $3,000 against Gonsolin, he's not going to come in owned at all. If you want to play Vlad against LeBlanc at $4,800, I mean, he's $100 cheaper than Hoskins, but probably will come in half his own. Mitch Moreland against Elflin at $4,200 on DraftKings. I mean, there's plenty of guys to play. I mean, I'm more likely to play the guy that's in my stack at first base than a one-off. So, like in my Rays stacks, I have Joy. In my Blue Jay stacks, I have Guerrero. But I don't think – I mean, Hoskins is probably, based on projections, the best play. But he's also $4,900. So it's not like you're not really getting a deal there. If you wanted to save at first base, I don't think you're crazy.
I like Freeman a good bit. I'm going to try to get there as well too. And I usually roll out two main lineups, and I try to have like a 3v3 or something like that. And that might be something I kind of split. My apologies, by the way. I thought my mic got all funky there because I was on Skype there for a second. I kind of drilled things, and so I'm sorry to your ears in advance. Well, not in advance. It already happened. There was no spoiler. Other first basemen that are kind of worth looking at. Do you have anything? It's just basically who's in your stack. Is that sort of the thought process?
I mean, you can play you're playing one-offs that at least have power. So if you wanted to play Abreu at $4,500, go have fun. If you're playing a Met stack and you have Alonso in there, okay, that's fine. Mitch Moreland or Justin Smoke, if you want to play a bat against Maeda at $3,400, he has power. So I mean Aguiar against Oswalt at $4,400. I mean, there are a lot of guys in that are cheaper than Hoskins that have nearly as much home run upside as Hoskins. It's close enough that, like, to me, just look for a home run and hope you get it.
Yeah, and I guess he's going to be chalky, I suppose, to some degree. And I know a lot of people say never again, and they've given up and what it's done for me lately, but he is hitting the ball hard still. He's been a little bit unlucky. I've watched a lot of his at-bats, a one off the wall, several like 400 feet, just kind of dying on the warning track. It's common. I hate saying it's due. I don't want to say that, but I just think that, the way he's swinging, it's going to happen soon enough. Moreland's a guy, I referenced it before. I generally don't love lefties in Fenway. It's not a good ballpark for lefty power. It's better for like lefty singles and doubles, but we like the homers. Doesn't mean he can't bang one out. And we saw for years David Ortiz, but he's a different kind of animal, obviously. Ortiz was just any ballpark, he could knock it out. You couldn't contain him. His lefty power is just too good, but that was kind of a lie to some degree because, again, Fenway's hard for lefties to hit out homers. They go the other way, obviously. Keystone position, second base. What do you have for us? Okay,
second base. I'd rather pay down at second. I know we're probably going to get some ownership on Biggio, lefty even against LeBlanc, Brandon Lau against Tanaka.
Love that power.
I looking at the projections, I'm more likely in cash to go down and play like Luis Garcia, $2,300 against Tomlin. Tomlin has a history of fly ball. He doesn't get strikeouts and he gives up fly balls. They're going to be playing in the heat in Atlanta. Nationals are one of the stacks that I'm looking at. He hit his first home run yesterday. Doesn't mean
you want a fun fact on that homer? A fun fact on him: he's the first person ever born in the 2000s to hit a homer in the Major League Baseball.
Well, there you go. You got maybe the first person to hit 2 home runs.
I don't know if that's a fun. It was a fact. I don't know if it's up to the listener, I suppose, to determine if it was a fun fact. For sure, it was a fact. You tell me it was fun or not.
I'm not even sure it's a fact. You could be making this up.
No, it's true. I mean, unlike my free roll, this is actually true. Robbie Cano might be the oldest person ever to hit 2 home runs. He did that yesterday. That's probably not true. It's definitely not true. Nelly Cruz is 40. He was even the oldest person yesterday to do it. Nelson Cruz is absolutely ridiculous. He banged out 2 homers last night. Egregiously, he hit a home run when they're up like 6 runs or something like that in the 8th or 9th inning. He should have just taken a walk.
Right, they should have just packed it up and went home.
The managers are the worst sometimes, these old school guys. You mentioned Lau, and I'm talking about ballparks, and I kind of like poo-poo Fenway when it comes to lefty power. Yankee Stadium, really, really positive for lefty power. Lau has plenty of power on the left-hand side, so don't mind him. He is pretty expensive. You got to spend up for him, but he's batting second. Well-positioned, assuming Tampa does fairly well. He's going to get himself 5 ABs with hitting second in that lineup. You mentioned Garcia's 2.3K on DK, and that's if you're doing double barrel, like Garcia is your friend, Eaton's your friend, Washington National Stack actually might be your friend outside of a couple of the big spends there. Anybody else as far as pivots at second base, or you want to hit third?
Well, the bat is going to recommend Colton Wong batting leadoff against Darvish.
Nope.
In Wrigley. I mean, he's cheap. Sure, he's batting he's got most plate appearances, but it's someone that I'm Xing out. Or Brandon Drury at 2,700 against LeBlanc batting 7th for the Blue Jays. He's obviously a platoon risk. But I mean, to me, you could pay down here if you want. I don't necessarily. I mean, we have ownership at Lau and Cano. I don't think Cure is going to be 12% owned. Cesar Hernandez is 4,700. I don't know about that.
I can't talk to that
Hernandez batting 8th at home. I'm not a big fan of for cash games. Danny Mendick at 2,500 batting 9th at home. I'm not a big fan of. Kingery maybe. I mean, I second base sucks today. So like, if you want to pay down there, go for it.
Yeah, and that's what makes it even easier to play a guy like we talk about opportunity costs all the time. Luis Castillo. And I know he's going to be. You have the ownership stuff in front of you, and again, you mentioned ownership before. Obviously, it's fluid. It's always ever changing, and I imagine that number that they have on Darno is going to get higher the closer and closer we get to lock as more information comes in. But I would imagine also that Garcia is going to be fairly heavily owned just because of the price and batting 6th, good lineup, good ballpark, nice opponent. So yeah, sure, he's probably my cash game second baseman, like you said. There's nobody really I absolutely have to have at second. What about third? Is there somebody you have to have at third base?
I think the cash play is Rafael Devers at 4,400 against Eflin. I think you're either going up to Devers, not that far up. He's only 4,400. Or you're going down and you're playing Alec Boehm at 3K against Godley, batting 6th for the Phillies. I think those are going to be the 2 most popular plays. But obviously, you got power here. Moncada against Skubal. You got Justin Turner. You got J.D. Davis. You got Yandy Diaz at 2,800 against Tanaka. You can pay up to be different and play Jose Ramirez against Brubaker. You could play in a Nat stack. You play a Dribble Cabrera. Looking down here, you could play Kyle Seager. No one's going to play him. You got a steal and a home run yesterday.
Narrative Street, by the way, I missed the narrative. I'm not sure if you were on it or not. I'm not sure if you're team narrative. The Seager brothers, well, they both banged out homers last night. Their parents were watching the game on Skype. They interviewed them mid-game. It was pretty fun. It was the
first time since 2000.
Well, I don't know about that. The first brothers, no, that's probably not true. There's probably another set of brothers that we had a father-son, Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Sr. They hit home runs in the same inning, which is pretty cool. That might never happen again. Maybe. I don't know. That's kind of a cool moment. You know what I'm talking about? Yes?
Possibly? Yeah, but I think Fernando Tatis has more of a chance to break his father's record.
Didn't his father have like 4 home? Did he have a 4-homer game?
No, he had 2 grand slams in 1 inning.
That's what it was. There you go. Well, it depends if he's allowed to swing on a 3 open.
Right. If they're up by too much, he can't break that record.
Can't do it. Got to take the ball. And like everything I said about Boston lefty power, it's baked into the price for Devers, 4.4K. It's baked into the price. It's baked into the matchup. Oh, the Upton brothers. Remember, you got Justin and Justin's on his last legs, and Boss Jr. He got paid and then he got terrible really fast. BJ Upton. Yeah, I don't really know. They're throwing out some more brothers there in chat. But Devers he's like 3K on FanDuel, baked into the price. That lefty, he's like a really solid play against Eflin. I know he struck out a bunch of dudes last time, but he's still really vulnerable against righties. I'm not buying it. And 4.4 on DK is pretty reasonable as well. Turner, I wish he was a little bit cheaper than 4.9 on DK, but for sure playable in your Dodgers stack. Travis Shaw, I don't think he's good anymore. That's just sort of I have this bias against him. And you mentioned Skubal, like his numbers in the minors were electric, but I don't think he pitched AAA. His K rate was like he's striking out 12 or 13 dudes per 9. That's a lot. And they said they're going to limit him to 50 pitches, and who knows what comes into that bullpen. But for sure, just like yesterday, the Chicago stack is in play. Anything else at third that's worth a shout out, or shall we jump back to shortstop?
No, let's go to shortstop.
All right, set the table. What do you have for us?
Okay, I think shortstop is going to be fairly spread out ownership. I think if you pay down, you're going to someone like Chris Taylor against Gonzalez for the Dodgers at 3,200. You could also play you could play Kike Hernandez batting 8th at 3,600. Obviously, I'd rather, with them being the home team, I'd rather take the 6th hitter than the 8th hitter. I think Gregorius is going to be popular, a lefty against Godley in Fenway Park. Dansby Swanson batting first against Voth. Trey Turner batting first against Tomlin. I think that's where most of the ownership is going. But from a projection standpoint, I mean, you have cheap Santiago Espinal against LeBlanc. Who is he? Is he a computer-generated player? I have no idea.
I need a proof of life. I'm fairly certain he's a person that's playing for Toronto today. I meant to dive into him, do a Fangraphs deep dive on him because I saw the name earlier today, but unfortunately I did our sports card show and it ran a little bit long and I didn't have a chance to jump in there. But after the show, I'm curious to see what the deal is on. I don't know anything about Santiago Espinal, but he is batting 9th. He'll be holding a piece of wood and he's 2.4K and he's facing Wade LeBlanc. So maybe, I suppose, if it kind of makes everything else work. But ideally, in my cash games, I want Trey Turner. I love leadoff hitters on the road and positive ballparks against bad teams. And they have different ways to get there. You can get there via the homer. You can swipe a couple bags, probably gets those 5 ABs, which are precious. I really, really want to get Trey Turner in there. Anybody else that's worth a look? I mean, I'm basically mostly ignoring the Cubs and Cardinals from a hitting, especially the Cardinals. I'm probably ignoring the Cubs as well. If I am going to roster a Cub, it's going to be one of the righty power guys. Is there no Bryant? No Bryant in the lineup, but Baez for sure. Yeah, why not? Anything else for us at shortstop that's worth a look, or shall we move on and talk about some outfielders?
VR against the Oswalt and the Mets bullpen at 4,300, home run and steal upside. I think J.P. Crawford is sneaky against Gonzalez at 3,600. He'll be 1% owned. No one's going to play him. Adames against Tanaka in Yankee Stadium at 3,600. I'm always looking at the cheap shortstops, and I'm more likely to play Adames because Wendell's in the lineup. He's a lefty against Tanaka, but most likely if the Yankees bring in a lefty, Wendell Brosseau is going to come in for Wendell. You have to. I'm going to talk about the Rays stack. You're going to have to be very aware of how many players you're putting in your stack that are liable to be platooned for, because the Rays do that very often.
We're going to talk about stacks in a second, but the people in chat are asking questions about stacks. They want to know about your vomit stacks. Ask about stacks in the chat. We'll do our best to answer. If there's some players that we haven't mentioned or touched on, or you want us to reiterate about, we're happy to do that as well. I meant to do this the other day, and it's kind of results based. But at the same time, I had it in my notes. I forgot to get there. But I want to play Jose Ramirez and Lindor and Franmil Reyes because nobody's playing the Indians, and they went absolutely nuts. Franmil did get hurt in that game where he banged out 2 homers, but it was just X-rays were negative, and he's back in the lineup for what it's worth. Let's no issues there. Let's jump to the outfield. Who's jumping out for you as far as your favorite plays, and then when you consider actual salary, who your favorite plays?
Okay, well, from a salary standpoint, in cash games, you could make a case that you don't have to spend more than $4,000 for an outfielder. I think Verdugo batting leadoff against Eflin at 3,400. Solid cash play. Grichuk at 3,900, batting second against LeBlanc in Baltimore. Sign me up for that. I think you could get away with Eaton at 3,000 against Tomlin. I think you could play Yoshi, batting 7th against Tanaka. He's 2,400.
There's a threat though, Renfroe can spell him, right? He's
one of those guys that's the thing. Satsugo and Kiermaier are both lefties, and Renfroe and Margot are sitting there as righties. So. Yoshi could come out. Kiermaier could come out. Wendell could come out.
I don't have stats on this, but you tell me. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I kind of watched it, watched the games and pinch hits and all. Tampa, I'm fairly certain, was probably leading the league in guys getting pinch hit for. Cincinnati for a while there too. But is that something you've noticed as well too with your stacks? Tampa, lefty righty, they swap in and out more than anybody else. It seems like.
Right. Well, that's why I said if you're going to stack them up, make sure that you're not playing multiple of those guys. You don't want to be sitting in the 6th inning and half your stack is on the bench.
Yeah, well, that's no fun. Eaton feels like a pretty good cash game play at 3K. You don't necessarily want to roster Adam Eaton. Not a guy that comes with a ton of upside necessarily. Professional hitter, gives the professional bat. He can go, 2 for 5 with a couple doubles or something like that. Every once in a while, I'll take one out, but he's just so cheap. He kind of makes things work. If you have all the salary in the world, obviously Soto's a great play. He's an absolute monster.
Pollock is another under 4K, batting cleanup, 3,900 against Gonzalez. I think the overall best outfield play, projection-wise, he'll be owned, is Bryce Harper,
sure,
5,500 against Godley in Fenway Park. But you get the ownership there. Guys that are going under the radar that have just as much upside would be someone like Max Kepler against Burns in Minnesota. He's going to be single-digit owned. We're going to see here. I'm going to go to the bat projections. And like I said, you could play Kristen Stewart as a cheap. If you're not going to play Cease, playing Kristen Stewart as a one-off at 2,800 is fine. I think if you want, it's hard. You can play Chris Taylor in the outfield. Duvall against Voth at 3,900. There aren't that many high-priced outfielders I want to play. The one I'm the most interested in is Austin Meadows at 5,000. I'm on the Rays today.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Say it again.
I'm on the Rays today, and I just don't think many people are going to pay 5,000 for Meadows.
I agree with you.
When you could play other guys. I think the Mets outfielders against Mejia, Nimmo, Conforto, those guys. Corey Dickerson's back, 3,900 against Oswalt and the Mets bullpen. You could see you could already tell who my vomit stacks are by the cheap guys that I'm talking about. But I'm looking, because I'm playing very select pitchers and they're all expensive. I'm focused on cheaper bats in good spots, and then just try to get 40 points plus out of my pitcher spots. And then just basically, I'm hoping that the Phillies don't break the slate. I'm hoping that the Dodgers don't break the slate. I'm hoping that the expensive stuff doesn't break the slate. And I think I put myself in a position to win GPPs.
The chat has given us some other set of brothers, the Boones, Aaron and Brett, the Giambis, Jason and Jeremy. Nobody mentioned the Cansecos. Remember Ozzy Canseco? Jose, of course, you remember. All right. Soto or Harper? Who do you prefer amongst those two? Both great plays, obviously.
Well, compared to ownership, I'd take Soto. But, I think Harper is the best projected outfield play of the day.
I see a couple people asking about the Cardinals stack as a potential vomit stack. There's no way I'm playing them for several reasons. They played double headers in 2 of the last 3 days. They're in probably the worst ballpark, on the slate when you consider the weather conditions. They have the lowest team total, I believe, at 3.3. They're facing the best pitcher in Darvish. No chance I play the Cardinals. Are the Cardinals too vomity for you, or you're intrigued?
It's too vomity. The vomit stacks that I usually pick out are never against top tier pitchers, because it's a 10-game slate. Your stack needs to be the top stack. It can't just be they score 5 runs. You're not going to win first place that way. So the likelihood of Darvish could have a bad game, give up 4 runs with only 3 strikeouts, and not be the best pitcher on the slate. You'd rather not roster him, but it doesn't mean the Cardinals stack did any good either. So it's I don't want to target the Yankees against Snell. I don't want to target the Pirates against Carrasco. But Cease isn't as good of a pitcher. So if you wanted to get leverage by playing the Detroit bats, they're horrible. I'm more inclined to do that. I'm not doing that because I'm playing Cease. But I'm much more inclined to play the Tigers against Cease than play the Cardinals against Darvish. I'm looking for vomit stacks. I'm looking at Tampa Bay vomit stack. I have Slate IQ brought up, which will show you.
We got a minute, just so you know.
Okay, top stack potential versus what they're going to be owned. And we have the Braves over-owned. We have the Dodgers over-owned. We have the Phillies over-owned. Boston slightly overowned, and then the top ones that aren't overowned are the Rays, the White Sox, the Mets, the Indians. That they're expensive. Then we got some Blue Jays. Nationals are okay. Miami's down here, but I think they're going to be even lower owned than they are, and I think their potential upside is better. But I look at Slate IQ to go, okay, get off the Dodgers, get off the Braves. get leverage with the Rays. They're cheap. The White Sox aren't cheap. The Mets aren't cheap. Toronto's cheaper. The Nats are cheap. So this is where I find the vomit stacks to play. As long as they're not facing an ace, I'm fine.
All right, we got to step aside and make way for crunch time for premium members. Kevin Roth will be on there talking all the weather. If any weather's going down, he'll let you know what's going up. And, of course, there's a weather link on the RG page. They'll give you the most up-to-date update as far as what's happening weather-wise around baseball. STL Cards is on there as well as Cardi. He was Blender. I was Dean. I will answer your questions in chat. We're out of here. Holler.